Christ-centered art journaling that gets you into God's Word every day. I think there was a tiny delay on Facebook, so hello again, everybody. It's Marina with Artworthy Life. I teach Christ-centered art journaling that gets you into God's Word every day. And today is day 22 of our October Doodle a Day challenge. Hi, Anne. So good to see you on. Welcome. So it's been like a crazy month of so many doodles, and I've been really enjoying it. So thank you all for your requests for certain doodles. Please go ahead if you have an idea for something fall themed that you would like to see painted before the end of the month. Hi, Anne. Please go ahead and leave it in the comments because I do read those comments and I love to paint what you guys are looking for. So we did our scarecrow and that was a request. We did Indian corn, that was a request. We've done lots of things. Anyway, so go back and look at those and leave some comments. What do you think we should paint next? What should we paint on Monday? So as you know, I'm live every day this month at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, 12:30 Central, 1:30 Eastern at Artworthy Life doing a doodle a day. However, coming up next week, I will be out of town. So not on Monday, but toward the end of the week, some of those lives, some of those demos will not be live, but they will still be posted at 10:30, so you'll still see those, and the tracers will still be available. They'll be new every day. So make sure you go check those. And same deal, you'll be able to download the tracer and follow along just as usual. But we're going to go ahead and get started on today's demo. It was a really cute little jar of canned pears. And I'm going to get started on this real fast because we are in the middle of a sale at our house. And so I'm taking a quick break to do my doodle a day with you guys and read some scripture with you. And then I'm going to get back to that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So we are in the Sermon on the Mount, if you've not been following along. And we are in chapter 7 right now, starting in verse 13. And starting in verse 13, and I'll end in 14. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. And thank the Lord God that we know where we can find life in Christ Jesus. He's the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father but through him. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started on today's doodle. So let me flip Instagram around so they can see. And here is our little paper today. And I know the tracer is probably not showing up on your screen just because it's so bright, but you should at least be able to see the little piece of paper and be able to follow along. Oh, that is so very bright. It's always so very bright. Okay, well, hopefully you'll be able to see. One thing I wanted to show you guys real quick is the versatility of the tracers before I totally get started. This is one of the doodles we did a while back, and I just did a demo in a friend of mine's art group, and I showed them this exact painting, but larger. So think about that when you're using your tracers. They're very versatile. You could take one that's this size, blow it up on your screen and trace your screen, or print it out larger, jumbo size it on your printer or whatever means you have for doing that. And you can use that same tracer, because they are quite detailed, to make a much larger drawing. So look at that. And I just love this page so much. So if you want an idea for some Thanksgiving cards or anything like that, think about using your little tracer ideas for bigger paintings as well. Okay, I just wanted to show you that real quick. Oh, Tammy says, good afternoon. Hi, Tammy. And she just said goodbye to Adeline and your son. Oh, well, I'm so glad they got such a long visit. I'm glad that they were there for a little while. It's always hard to say goodbye, though. She is such a cutie, such a doll. Okay, we're going to get started. So this is going to be another one of our plaid paintings. And if you remember, we were doing plaid throughout the month. We have been doing plaid throughout the month. So here's a few of the paintings we have that have plaid incorporated into them. Our little scarecrow, of course, had some plaid, a little bit of plaid on the apple basket, and on this umbrella as well. So we're going to use those as our color inspiration for today, and we're going to put some plaid on this little jar. Alrighty, so let me move those out of the way and keep them kind of nearby for color inspiration, but out of the way. I loved our little sweater. Which one of these is your favorite of all the little doodles that you've seen with plaid? You guys should tell me. Good morning, Terry. Are you going to shop today? Do you know today is $1 a day at our sale? You should come shop today. Tammy says, not $1 a day, $1 an item. I don't know what I said. Tammy said she loved to paint and did the sweater doodle with me. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. Alrighty, we're gonna start with our largest paintbrush. You guys should tell me which of these plaid doodles that we've done so far are your favorite. Is your favorite? Okay, so I'm gonna start with a light tan color, and that's gonna be our brilliant yellow mixed with a little bit of brown and watered down a lot. And this is going to be the color of basically the color of our jar. So we're going to come around the jar with this golden color, and I want to basically fill in almost the whole jar, but I'm going to leave little bits of white space. So just thinking about where do I want some shine on this jar. I know I kind of probably want it on the bottom a little here. So leave a little white space and then basically fill in the rest of it because it doesn't need a lot of white space for sure. It's just a little honey colored jar basically. And my aunt makes canned pears, and the jar just looks so sweet. No pun intended, but it does. It's very golden colored. It's really delicious looking. So what we're gonna do is add our shading into this as it's still wet. So on this left-hand side, I'm gonna start adding some darker gold, and it's more pigmented. So that's gonna put some shading on the edges of this jar, just like that. And then I'm gonna take a clean brush and just kind of brush that in, like so. And come up the left side. Terry says her favorite is the scarecrow. Oh, I love that. Yep, and especially because it was a highly requested painting. I'm glad that you like that one. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll just use a clean wet brush to kind of fade those in all around. And then I will also put a little bit of this honey color up underneath the edge where the cloth makes a shadow. So even though it really doesn't make a huge shadow, it's just nice to have that a little bit of shading up underneath that cloth. And I'm going to let this area start to dry. What I do want to do is just around the edges, while it's still wet, I'm going to just add even more shading because it's much easier to add this shading in while it's slightly wet. So I'm going to add a little bit more brown to my golden color and come in along this edge and just go a little bit darker along that edge, just like that. And while it's wet, I'm basically working wet and wet. And coming along that edge. And that's going to make that jar stand out even more, especially when we start to fill it with some pears. I'm just going to kind of give it that shape a little bit better. And I'm going to take this orange and even do some little like stripes down the side of it. That's just going to make that edge of that jar pop up some more. Tammy says blueberry preserves and whole figs are her favorite. Oh, of things that are canned? Yum. Blueberry preserves sounds so good. Do you make your own? Okay, and then we'll just kind of fill this in along the top a little bit more. I'm using my smallest brush just because I want to only add a tiny bit. I don't want to do too much. All right, and then I can just kind of take this brush and sweep it around in a curved shape, and that will create like a curved look to my jar. You can kind of come around that curve like that. Okay, so we'll come back and we'll do the pear shapes, but that we basically wanted to get the transparent look of the jar. Ooh, I know that's looking really bright. Probably better to leave it down like that. Here's a shadow for those of you that sometimes can't see without a shadow. And we'll have to work on lighting. I don't know, something weird is happening. Hi, Terry. She says, hello. Oh, she's saying hi to Tammy. Tammy says, hi, Terry. And Tammy does make her own. How cool. That's awesome. Okay, so next what I want to do is I'm going to use my other painting as inspiration for this next section. So I kind of just keep these paintings nearby so that I can kind of get an idea of what I want. So I've painted a shiny thing here and a jar here. So I know about the depth of color I'm going to want on this little jar. And here's another shiny thing. And I'm not doing anything turquoise, but I am doing something shiny, and I'm doing something this kind of gray color. So what I'm going to work on is the rim of this jar. So it's the top of the canning lid, the circle, what do you call that? The ring of the canning lid. And so for that, I want to use a brown gray. So I'm going to use a black, basically a black that I've added a little bit of brown to. And it's going to come out this kind of gray color. So I'm going to fill in this, but what I want to do is kind of mimic a little bit of the shine that's happening on this lantern here. So I'll start off by just giving it a quick outline like this. Just going to come around the outside of it and then down those edges. Now I'm going to water down my brush because I don't want to be working with a lot of color right now. And I'm just going to sweep that color in just a little bit. I'm going to come in from the right hand side and bring it over. And I'm going to stop right about there and leave a little shine, and then go a little further and stop and leave a little bit of shine there. So there's going to be my main shiny spots. And I'm going to kind of sweep that gray color around. I want to see if I can get this rounder. Like that. And then I'm going to come all the way around like this with some of that gray. And then, of course, on the bottom as well. And I'm just using the edge of my brush to smooth out that jar. So look, there's my base coat, if you want to call it that, for my jar lid. And I'm going to come back with my smallest brush. This is my size 10-aught. Leslie Ann Dixon says I should call that a 10-aught. So that's what we're going to go with. Size teeny brush. And then I'm going to water it down a little so it's smooth, but I want to basically add a little shadow around the inner edge back here to make that edge a little more crisp. And then I'm also going to come along this edge. Basically, I'm just defining the edges of this jar a little bit better so that it's easier to see the rim. There we go. So you're able to actually see where that rim comes up and over. So I haven't done a lot of canning, you guys. I know that there's some of my family members have done tons of canning. Like my dad used to go to my great-grandmother's house, his grandma's house. And as a kid, they would can and can and can and can plums and strawberries and just all kinds of things like that. So he's familiar with canning, although I don't know that he could just do it on his own. Of course, he could look up how to do it, but I mean, you know, from memory, I don't think he knows how to do it. But and then my mom would help some of her family members can in the summertime, but even she didn't really do canning like on her own either. We always wanted to get into it, but never really got the equipment or anything. So the only canning I've really done myself, I did as part of like a homeschool group. And it was apple butter. We did apple butter as a whole group. Somebody came in and instructed us. So I haven't really done a ton of it. So the question is, what kind of canning, for those of you that do canning, what kind of vegetable or fruit or whatever should be like a beginner canning project? What would you suggest? Because I would love to get into it. I just haven't really had the opportunity. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some darker shadow to this jar now that I've added that rim so we can see it real well. And I'm still kind of mimicking the shine that's coming off of this thing. And to do that, I'm just going to come in with a darker stripe of color. And I might need to water it down a little. And I'm just going to bring that all the way across like so. I'm going to use my bigger brush. So I'm adding a darker stripe. Tammy still wants to come and visit. Yeah, you definitely should. Just keep track of us and we'll see. I mean, like, if we're still here, you're more than welcome to come. We just may not have anywhere to house you. It will depend on what happens with everything, you know, and we'd love to have you out. It would be so fun. Okay, so I'm just adding a little bit of darker shading and then a little bit here as well. And of course, if we're on your side of the country, you can just come that way. But I don't want you to miss seeing Oregon. Man, it's so pretty out here in the summertime. It's really nothing like the rivers out here, the rivers and mountains out here, especially in the summer. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of black to the background here. And again, this would be a good time to have a reference photo. I don't have one right now, so again, I'm winging it. I don't know why I'm winging it on this stuff that needs reference photos, but whatever. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry. And now we're gonna come in and do the pears. So the pears are gonna still be kind of a golden color, so still that brilliant yellow with a little bit of orange mixed in. And I'm adding a little tiny bit of orange to it. Let's see if I can get it. I think I'm gonna actually add some yellow ochre as well, because that's more of a tan color. We'll see how that comes out. And then basically just follow your tracer. So your tracer has shapes of little pears, but you'll just kind of follow those little pear shapes and fill them in like so. And they don't have to be fully colored in either. You can kind of just get the basic shape and leave some space behind if you'd like. Okay, and I'm going to put one up on end right here. Do another one right here. Of course, there's shine that I'm dodging on the jar. Like that. And, you know, if you're looking at a jar of pears, you may not see every little curve of every little pear. So as I'm painting this in, if I'm not getting the whole shape, it's okay. It doesn't have to actually show the whole thing. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of shading here and there to each of the little pieces of pear. But really, I don't want them to be very pronounced. You know, I want the pear to kind of look like it's covered in juice. It's pears, Tammy. They're more golden colored, but yes, it's a jar of pears. You can do peaches. I guess it doesn't matter what they are, but these are pears. I just had the image in my mind of the pears that my aunt canned, and they were so delicious and very fall. Very fall. Like fall in a jar. I'm adding a little bit of shading to this jar just because I want it to be a little bit darker. I'm actually going to grab some brown because I'm not getting that edge of the jar as dark as I want it to be. So I'm just going to go ahead and go in with brown and accentuate the darkest parts of this jar. And I'm going to use like almost a cocoa brown for that. Coming along the bottom and smoothing out the bottom curve like that. And then I can take this same brown and I can kind of run it along the edges of the highlights as well. And just kind of give my jar a little bit more shape using the brown. And that can be pretty good for now. Okay, so we're still letting the jar lid dry some. I'm going to come in and do the cloth. The cloth is really fun. So the cloth is going to be inspired by all our plaid that we've had for so long. So let me move these around and bring out those plaids again. So here's our plaid. I really have loved doing these colors of fall plaid. It's been really fun. So we're going to start with a light tan again. This is a light brown mixed with a little bit of yellow. And that's going to be our base color for our cloth on this jar. And it's almost the color of the jar of peaches, or peaches. Now you got me on peaches. The jar of pears, almost the same color, but not quite. It's got a little bit more brown in it. And then you just want to follow the tracer where the curves are. We won't worry so much about the folds as far as drawing a line. We're going to use those folds to create shadow. And then don't forget to paint in the inside of the jar lid, right there. Okay, now where those folds are, anywhere you see a fold, is going to be a little shadow. So I'm going to do a little shading here, fading out to the edge of that one. And we'll do a little shading right here where that would fold over. And so when we do the shading before we do the plaid, basically shading it as though there's not going to be plaid. So you just pretend like you just want this to be a beige cloth or something. And we'll do our shading as if there's going to be no plaid. So we get all the full shading in before we do any other pattern. And I'm doing it, but I'm not like super critical of it. It can be somewhat flexible. I'm just getting some decent shading in. I'm using a slightly darker orangey beige for this. Okay, and then we can even add a little bit of shading to the top here, like on the back especially, and on the left. Just give it some shading so that it's not just one flat piece. And I'm also going to come back in with a little bit of brown, a little bit more brown, and just come back over the shading I've already done right here. Do a little bit more. Right there. Do a little bit more right here. I'm going to come along this edge to make sure that edge is pronounced, and we'll do a little bit more on this little fold. So just follow those little folds, add some shading in the corners. I'm kind of drying my brush off in between. You can see I'm moving my hand so that I can get the excess color off my brush when it's too much. Okay, I'm going to clean my brush. With a clean wet brush, I can push this color around a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty good on shading. On the ruffles, I can add the same shading up here again at the top of the jar, but not too much because I don't want it to start to look like it's the same color as the jar lid, the metal part. So just enough. And now before I start to add the plaid, I am going to come in with a deep rust color and a little bit of brown. Just kind of a dark, any dark brownish color. And I want to make these edges stand out. So I'm just going to carefully trace the edge of this fabric. And if you're hearing the lawnmower outside, I apologize. We are doing all kinds of things outside today, so you're probably hearing a lawnmower. Okay, Okay, so I'm just going to follow these edges because I don't want them to disappear against the honey color of the pears. That. So there's the edge of my fabric, and I can also somewhat outline up here at the top this little jar lid. As well. That'll kind of help my eye see what's going on over there. All right, just like that. And I can take my clean wet brush and fade in a little bit of that. It's not super crisp. So just taking a clean wet brush and fading in where I've already done that brown outline so that it's not just a straight line there. It has a little bit less of an outline going on. A little bit more of like a dark shadow on the edge. All right, so basically we're getting all the shading in, like I said, before we add the plaid. That's really important so that our plaid so we don't have to do shading on top of plaid. Oh, hi, Leslie Ann. Good morning. She says, love it. We can pears and peaches every year. Oh, how fun. Terry says, I like pears. We used to try to fool him to get him to eat something with pear in it. Usually didn't work. Oh, because your dad hated pears. He grew up on a pear orchard and had some hard times when that was all they had to eat. Oh, wow. That's crazy. What a blessing that they had at least that. But yeah, he would probably get sick of it after a while. Hi, Anita. Good morning. Thanks for watching. Wow. So yeah, I mean, you think about fruit growing on a tree, and when you just have it, you don't think about it being like, this is food. But truly, I mean, if you're not well off, or if you're hit some hard times, that's a huge blessing to just walk outside and have food hanging on a tree. I mean, at least you can live on that for a little while. Our friends have pear trees. They actually have an apple tree too, and they've nearly ruined me for any pears anywhere else because they are so incredibly delicious. They're like candy, and so they've let us come and pick pears at their house, and I just can't get enough of them. Honestly, I cannot get enough of those pears. There's so many of them, and they're delicious. All right, we're going to go ahead and do the plaid. And so, just as you guys probably remember, we're going to start at an angle, and I'm going to do big golden stripes. And I need this to be a little bit darker because it's not showing up quite yet. So let me do that a tiny bit darker. I'm going to add a little brown to it so it's not so yellow. Okay, and we're going to do our plaid across here just like this. I got those a little close together, but that's okay. I'm just going to do these big, bold stripes and come all the way up to the top of the jar as well. And we're just, doing our best to evenly space those. And I'm going to turn it the other way. We'll do the same color and go crossways against the other stripes. And just go all the way across like this and all the way down. Okay. All right, so we'll let that start to dry. And while that's drying, we'll work on our jar lid. So our jar lid is just now getting dry. So we want to add the little grooves, like the little bumpy texture on the edge of the jar lid. What do we call that? The grip? Oh, Tammy's asking if Anita is feeling better. I hope she is. Tammy says hello to Leslie too. How fun. Okay, so now we're just going to do straight up and down little stripes. all the way down this jar, and I'm going to let them come across the highlight as well. And this will add some texture to our jar. They don't have to be very dark. They can just be little stripes coming all the way around the jar lid like that. Now I'm going to get a little bit of darker black, and I'm going to make the edges of this jar more pronounced. So I'm going to add some black to this edge and come along the bottom of this jar. Really want the jar to stand out against the fabric, so I don't want it to just get swallowed up by the lightness of the fabric. And come along the outer edge here and even the inner edge with my smallest brush and almost black. And then I can even come along the front edge here with that darker black to make that edge stand out just a little bit more. And these lines don't have to go all the way around. Like I can just do one or two darker shadows on the edge of one of the curves and then stop. Like it doesn't have to, anytime you do an outline like that, it doesn't always have to outline it perfectly the whole way around. In fact, if you leave a little gap in between, it'll feel more real. So I'm also going to use this black to come down and do a few of these little stripes a little darker, using that same black. And then I can do these ones a little darker as well. Okay, so just kind of coming around and doing those a little darker will sort of help the jar have some better shading. I think I want to have a little bit more shadow over here. So I'm just going to grab a little bit more black, fill in this left side, and use some water to kind of brush that in. So I'm using a clean, wet brush right now. I'm just going to smear this black around a little bit. It might be a little darker than I wanted, but just going to use a clean, wet brush and kind of push around some of this black. There we go. Yeah, I think I like that. And then I'll do just a little bit over here to offset that. You can flip this around. I keep flipping it because because I'm right-handed, and it's easier to pull towards me than it is to push against that edge. Let me hold this up closer to the camera so you guys can see how that's turning out. Isn't that cute? To match up the sweater, huh? Oh yeah. Yes, exactly. I like your cap. Maybe you can do one of those doodles. Oh, my hat? Oh, as a doodle? Oh, yes, that would be so cute, Tammy. Yes, this hat actually has plaid on it as well. We are yard sailing, so I'm in my most casual. Okay, next we're going to do the orange stripes. So I'm going to grab my smallest brush, and we're going to use, actually I'm going to mix the color first with my larger brush. We're going to use orange and a little bit of brown to darken it up. So a little bit of orange, a little bit of brown. And that's going to make a darker orange color. Oh, a cap to match the sweater. That would be so cute. Yes, it would. Okay, let me get quite a bit of orange on my brush. And this orange is going to go between the golden stripes. So anywhere you see a golden stripe, this is going to go between them. So right between like that. Hi, Pam. Thanks for watching on Instagram. Hello. Let me know, you Instagram people, if the image is clear today or if it's skipping like it was the other day. I think it's better today, but let me know. Okay, so we're just doing little orange stripes between. Mine are kind of uneven today, and that's okay. I did not have caffeine yet. I thought about it, but I decided I should Well, I actually just ran out of time to do anything. I think I made the hot water for tea and then just never got around to it. It's been one of those mornings. But here we go. We're going to do the stripes the opposite way and just make sure they end up square. So just kind of look at your stripes and make sure that they're making squares as you're coming down. Pam, are you excited? We're doing plaid once again. Oh dear. It'll just get lots of practice, that's all. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of stripe there and there and there. So notice I'm not worried about the curves of the fabric necessarily. I'm just following the plaid all the way across, and it works. And last but not least, we are going to do our rust color again. And that rust color, if you've missed it before, is crimson red with a little bit of orange in it. And number 52 brown. And that makes a nice deep rust color red, which I really have been enjoying. That real good fall red. Okay, and once you have that mixed up, you want it to be wet enough that you can flow across the page, but not so wet that it's too transparent. Hi, Twyla. She says, just checking in on a quick break. Oh, fun. Or for a quick break. Thank you for stopping by, Twyla. That's really fun. I'm so glad you're here. So I'm going to load up this brush with this rust color. And now this color is going to go between, or sorry, right down the middle of the orange stripes. And I'm going to try to make it thinner than the orange stripes. And it's also going to be like right in the center of the golden stripes as well. Just kind of go between. I'm going to make those lines come all the way up to here. Come down here. Come down here. Come down here and here. All the way down and here as well. Oops, there. So just make sure you're covering all the way across. And now I'm going to load this brush up one more time. I could go a little darker with this red, I think, but we'll see what it looks like first. And try to keep my line straight. All the way across like this. All the way across like this. And then I want to have those lines come up this way as well. Ta-da! So there's our plaid. We need to let that dry just a little bit before we do anything else. But we have some areas down in our little jar that we can work on. So I'm going to get a little bit of orange, mix it with a little bit of gold, and I'm just going to give the peaches a little shadow on some of the left edges. That'll make the, oh my goodness, you guys have me saying peaches. Tammy. She's got me saying peaches. Pears. Pears. Oh, and Tammy's saying hello to Twyla. They are pears, and I'm going to put some shading on our pears. They do kind of look like peaches, though, you know, whatever. Okay, so I'm just going to give the left side of the pears some shading here. And on the left side here, it's making me laugh. That's so funny. Anything can throw me off when I'm live, it seems like. Okay, there we go. And let's see, I can do a little bit more on the edges of the cloth. So I'm going to take brown, and I know now I have peaches on my brain. Now I really want peaches, Tammy, now that you've said that. It would be so good. Anyway, these are pears. These are pears. They're pears. They're pears, but they can be peaches. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit of brown and mixing it with some black. And I'm going to use that to darken up the edges of this cloth to kind of match the darkness of the jar lid. So you can see how dark that jar lid got. I want the shading on the left side, kind of the bends of this cloth to match that darkness. I'm just going to kind of put a little bit of darker shadow, and then very lightly, and like I said, it doesn't have to go all the way across, but very lightly put some dark shading up underneath as well. We'll do this up here. Okay, and we'll come up along the bottom, and then we can follow this curve as well. And then just kind of going wherever the tracer lines were. And that's just going to help the waves of that cloth show up a little better. Like that. I'm kind of adding a little bit more as I go, but just kind of darkening it up to the point where it matches the one at the top, how dark this is at the top. And I think that's pretty good. I'm just going to take this black. I know it's black, but I'm just going to take a tiny bit of it and darken up a little bit of the bottom of this jar, so it has a similar depth down at the bottom. I'll do even just a tiny bit here, and it's not even that much, but that little bit will really help the jar all kind of come together. I'm going to do a little bit on this shine here, a little bit right there. Where the edge of that jar could be. All right, and I think that's all we're going to do today. So here is our jar of pears or peaches, whichever you want it to be today. And oh, Tammy says the next doodle needs a turkey, a baked one, a baked turkey. Wow, you guys are all into food. That's a good one. Yeah, keep the suggestions coming. You never know, I might pick it. And this is what we have for today's plaid doodle. It goes along with all the plaid that we've had so far. And as you can see, a lot of the plaid has something to do with food. It almost looks like they're apples, like it went from this bucket into this jar. Anyway, I've really been enjoying these, so please go ahead and continue to give suggestions. You never know, I might paint it. So please feel free to leave it in the comments. And if you enjoyed today, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone you think would enjoy it. We have a lot more doodles to come, and they're all free this month. And I will see you on Monday. There will be a doodle posted for tomorrow. Just the tracer and the doodle. And so feel free to check that out tomorrow, but I will be worshiping on Sunday, so I will not be live. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'll see you on Monday for another doodle a day. God bless you guys. Take care. Bye.